A single knock broke the morning stillness before the sun cleared the Oregon hills. Rachel Turner opened her door and found a stranger standing without moving. His coat was faded brown. One sleeve had been stitched twice. Mud covered his boots. His hands were rough, but his back stayed straight. He asked for work with a quiet voice. He said his name was Ethan Cole. He asked for 3 meals, a place in the barn, and whatever pay she could spare. One small detail changed everything. The name was false. If stories about the old frontier stay close to your heart, stay with this one. The truth hiding behind that worn coat would soon test 2 lives in ways neither expected. The stranger was really Samuel Brooks, owner of the largest cattle ranch in Pine Creek Valley. Thousands of acres stretched beneath his brand. Men tipped their hats whenever he rode through town. Storekeepers hurried to greet him. Families quietly hoped one of their daughters might catch his eye. That morning, none of those things mattered. His fine horse waited beyond the trees. His clean clothes stayed hidden inside a saddlebag. He wanted to arrive with empty pockets and nothing else. Rachel studied him without speaking. She was 33. 3 winters had passed since her husband died beneath an overturned wagon. Since then, every fence, every field, every bill rested on her shoulders. The farm was shrinking one season at a time. She needed help, yet her purse held almost nothing. She folded her arms. I cannot promise proper wages. There is room in the barn. There is food while it lasts. If you need real pay, the Brooks Ranch is hiring. Samuel kept his face calm. This will do just fine. Rachel stepped aside. Then earn your supper. That simple answer carried more weight than either of them could see. Before the stranger reached the barn, Rachel called after him, "Wash first, then eat inside. Nobody sits alone while I have a table." Samuel paused. The words settled over him harder than the morning wind. For years, he had eaten beside polished silver in a house large enough for 20 people. Most evenings, only one chair was used. Servants filled plates, cleared dishes, and closed the doors. No voice asked about his day. No chair waited because someone wanted his company. Rachel served beans, bread, and roasted potatoes. She placed the same meal before herself and the stranger. Nothing extra, nothing held back. She asked where he learned farm work. Here and there. She asked where he planned to go after harvest. I have not decided. She accepted the short answers and spoke about broken fences, weak soil, and a stubborn mule that kicked every bucket within reach. The meal ended with quiet laughter after the mule somehow pushed open the kitchen door searching for apples. Samuel carried the empty plates toward the wash basin before Rachel could stop him. "You worked today," she said. "So did you." Neither spoke again, yet something small shifted between them. Long before that morning, another voice had shaped Samuel's life. Years earlier, he nearly married a woman named Evelyn. One evening, he returned home early and heard her speaking through an open window. She laughed with her cousin. "He owns half this valley. A person can overlook plenty for land like that." Samuel never walked through the front door. By sunrise, the engagement ended. After that day, every smile aimed his way felt measured. Every kind word seemed weighed against fences, cattle, and bank books. The ranch kept growing. His house kept growing quieter. Months before arriving at Rachel's farm, Samuel noticed her outside the general store. Townspeople crowded around him as always. Rachel never looked twice. She lifted heavy feed sacks into her wagon without asking anyone for help. Dust covered her dress, sweat ran down her face. She glanced toward the crowd once, shrugged, and returned to work. Samuel remembered that single glance long after everyone else forgot it. He quietly asked about the widow. People said she refused charity. People said she paid every debt, even when it took twice as long. People said she never complained where others could hear. That was enough. So he borrowed old clothes from one of his ranch hands, chose another name, and walked to her door before sunrise. As darkness covered the farm that first night, Samuel lay awake inside the barn, listening to rain strike the roof. A lantern glowed through the cracks in the wooden wall. Rachel moved around the kitchen preparing bread for morning. He could end every struggle she carried with one signature. Instead, he closed his eyes, pulled the thin blanket higher, and waited for another sunrise that would push the hidden truth one day closer to breaking apart. Morning frost covered the fields when Samuel stepped outside before daylight. Rachel was already carrying water from the well. She never asked him to rise early. She simply worked until the work was finished. Without speaking, Samuel took the heavy buckets from her hands. Rachel nodded once and walked beside him. The silence between them felt easy, not empty. Yet every sunrise tightened the knot inside him because the truth could not stay hidden forever. The fences became straight again. Broken gates swung smoothly. A leaking roof stopped dripping after Samuel spent 2 evenings replacing worn boards. The tired soil slowly answered careful hands. Rachel watched the changes with quiet surprise. She thanked him after every task, never with grand words, only with honest ones. Those simple thanks stayed with Samuel far longer than the praise he received whenever townspeople admired his ranch. One windy afternoon, Rachel noticed him rubbing his hands beside the barn door. The old brown coat did little against the cold. She disappeared into the farmhouse and returned carrying a folded wool coat. "My husband wore this," she said. "It should keep somebody warm instead of gathering dust." Samuel stared at the coat without reaching for it. "I cannot take this." "You can. Winter will not ask your permission." She placed it into his hands. The wool still carried the faint smell of cedar from the old wooden chest where it had rested. Samuel owned expensive coats, stitched by skilled tailors. None felt as valuable as the one resting across his arms that afternoon. Days later, they traveled into Pine Creek for seed and supplies. Rachel counted every coin before entering the general store. Samuel noticed how carefully she planned each purchase. Nothing extra entered the wagon. Outside, 2 well-dressed ranchers glanced toward Samuel. "Looks like the widow collects strays now," one muttered. Rachel heard every word. She turned before Samuel could answer. "This man has worked harder in 1 month than either of you has worked all year." Neither man replied. They lowered their eyes and walked away. Samuel stood frozen beside the wagon. Many people respected Samuel Brooks. Very few had ever defended him. The ride home passed beneath a sky turning gold. Rachel spoke about planting schedules and repairing the orchard fence before spring. Samuel answered when needed, but his thoughts remained in front of the store where someone had protected his name without knowing his real one. If this story has touched you so far, keep watching. The hardest choice still waits just ahead, and it will ask more from both of them than either expects. That evening, Rachel spread old bills across the kitchen table. Candlelight flickered across faded papers. Samuel recognized the bank seal before she folded one letter closed. She tried to smile. It can wait until tomorrow. It could not. After she went upstairs, Samuel quietly opened the letter left beneath the lantern. 30 days. That was all the bank allowed before the farm would be claimed. His chest tightened. The amount written across the page meant almost nothing to him. He could pay it before breakfast. He could erase every worry from Rachel's life with a single visit to town. Instead, he folded the letter exactly as he found it. Sleep refused to come that night. He walked circles inside the barn while rain tapped softly across the roof. Every step carried him toward the same question. Had he already learned enough? Rachel had shared food she could barely spare. She had offered warmth meant for her late husband. She had stood beside him when others looked down on him. What more did he need to know? Another memory answered. A bright smile. A soft laugh. Land instead of love. The old wound pulled him backward again. Morning arrived without peace. Rachel looked pale as she harnessed the wagon. "You should rest," Samuel said. "There is too much to do." She lifted another feed sack. Her hands trembled. Samuel nearly spoke the truth. The words reached his lips. Then hoofbeats rolled across the road. A rider crossed the bridge at full speed. Rachel looked toward the lane. Samuel recognized the horse before the rider removed his hat. It was Benjamin Hart, foreman of the Brooks Ranch. Benjamin reined in hard, climbed down, and hurried forward. "There you are, Mr. Brooks. Everyone has been searching for you." Rachel slowly turned toward Samuel. Her eyes moved from Benjamin's face to the borrowed coat. Nothing moved. Nothing needed explaining. The pieces fell together before either man spoke again. She looked at Samuel as though she had never seen him before. Rachel did not raise her voice. That hurt more than shouting ever could. She looked at the man who had repaired her fences, shared her table, and worn her husband's coat. "So your name is Samuel Brooks?" Samuel lowered his head. "Yes." "You let me believe you had nothing." "Yes." "You watched me count every coin while you owned more land than anyone in this valley." He answered with the same quiet voice. "Yes." Rachel stepped closer. "I gave you my husband's coat because I thought you needed it." Samuel held the coat against his chest. "I know." Tears never reached her eyes. She simply pointed toward the road. "Send your foreman away." Benjamin looked between them. Samuel nodded. "Go back to the ranch. I will come later." The foreman mounted his horse without another word and disappeared beyond the trees. The farm fell silent again. Rachel folded her arms. "Now tell me everything." Samuel spoke without hiding behind excuses. He told her about the broken engagement. He told her about hearing a woman laugh while speaking about his land instead of the man standing beside it. He told her how every smile afterward carried doubt. He told her about seeing Rachel outside the general store, lifting heavy sacks alone while everyone else crowded around the wealthy ranch owner. "You were the first person who looked at me without wanting anything." Rachel listened without interrupting. When he finished, she took a slow breath. "I understand why you were wounded." She looked toward the fields. "But you still lied." Samuel nodded. "I did. You let me worry about your meals." "Yes." "You let me hand you something that belonged to my husband." "I know." "You let me believe I was helping someone who truly needed help." Samuel could not answer. Every word she spoke landed where no money could shield him. Finally he said, "I came searching for one honest answer. I chose the wrong road to find it." Rachel looked at him for a long moment. "I cannot decide this today." Samuel handed her the wool coat. "It belongs here." She accepted it without speaking. Then she walked back into the farmhouse and gently closed the door. Samuel left before sunset. The large house waiting at the Brooks Ranch felt colder than ever. The dining table stretched across the room exactly as he remembered. One plate, one chair, one silent meal. He barely touched the food. The next morning, he rode into Pine Creek before the bank opened. Inside the office, he paid every dollar remaining on Rachel's mortgage. He left one instruction. The bank manager would receive full payment. Rachel would never know who delivered it until after the papers were already cleared. Samuel wanted no bargain, no condition, no promise in return. 3 days passed, then 4. On the 7th morning, a polished black carriage rolled slowly toward Rachel's farm. Neighbors stopped working to watch. Everyone recognized the Brooks family crest painted on the door. The carriage stopped beside the gate. Samuel stepped down. He wore clean trousers, fresh boots, a white shirt. Over all of them rested the same faded brown coat he had first worn to Rachel's door. He walked alone. No servants followed. No gifts filled his hands. Rachel opened the door before he reached the porch. Neither spoke at first. Samuel removed his hat. I came this way because nothing should be hidden now. Rachel waited. I paid the mortgage. She frowned. I know. The bank told me yesterday. I did not want you to feel you owed me anything. You cannot buy yesterday back. I know. You cannot erase the lie. I know. He looked straight into her eyes. I am not asking you to forget it. The morning breeze stirred the trees behind them. Samuel drew one slow breath. I came to ask one question as the man you came to know. He held out his hand. Will you marry me? Rachel looked at the old brown coat. She remembered the stranger who carried water without being asked. She remembered the man who laughed over supper. She remembered cold mornings, repaired fences, and quiet evenings around a small wooden table. Then she stepped forward. Come inside. Samuel said nothing. Rachel opened the door wider. You already know the rule. A faint smile crossed his face. No one eats alone here. She placed her hand in his. The kitchen table waited beside the window. Sunlight poured across 2 empty chairs. Outside, the carriage stood untouched while the front door slowly closed behind them.